I was feeling wildly unrooted. So I decided to go to the wild and hang out with some trees and their roots. 18 months earlier, I had risked everything to leave my 30-year marriage and the closet. And don't get me wrong, it was totally worth it. But the whole experience had left me feeling disconnected, unrooted, and deeply lonely. So there was only one thing to do. I had to go to the woods like people do in folk and fairy tales. There's a state forest not far from where I live. So I drove my car there, parked, and started up the trail. And I know they tell you you're not supposed to do this, but I did it. I went off the path. I took my own way, deeper and deeper amidst the trees. I walked and I walked until I stopped. There in front of me was an oak tree, so out of place amidst all this poplar and pine. It had giant roots like fingers digging into the earth. I stood amongst those roots and looked at that tree. It was ancient, massive trunk with gray ash bark, deeply grooved. And I stood there and I began to weep with the ache in my heart of that disconnection and uprootedness and loneliness. And as I cried through the tears, the bark, those furrows in the bark began to blur into the lines of the face of an old woman. And she leaned her head forward out of the tree, and then the rest of her followed. She stood before me, her skin the same color and deeply grooved like the bark of the tree, gray ash, her hair like a forest of white twigs on her head. She had dark black eyes that twinkled with magic. And I knew those eyes could see my soul. She didn't have any teeth, but a smile that said, I know something you don't know, which of course she did. I could tell she wanted to tell me something, but we had no common language between us, no way to give and receive her message. And so she lifted her arm like the limb of a tree, hand and fingers like branches, and she gently cupped the back of my head and pulled me towards her. We were forehead to forehead, and that swirling in my heart calmed. And then she slid her hand and touched my right ear. A jolt of pain, and our embrace was done. She smiled, gave a little wink, and melted back into the tree. What the hell was that? I mean, I tell folk and fairy tales, but a tree sprite, a forest spirit, an angel? Who knows? There was nothing to do except make my way back to the car. So I retraced my steps and went home. At first, I didn't notice anything different. Well, sure, there was like a pressure in that ear and a ringing buzz, but I didn't think much of it. given everything. And then later that evening, my phone rang and I saw with the caller ID that it was my granddaughter, Tori. So I answered it and held the phone to my right ear like you do if you're right-handed. Hey, Tori. Sounded metallic and distorted. I couldn't understand a word she said. Tori, you have to hang up and call me back. We have a bad connection. So she hung up. And a few seconds later, the phone rang and I answered it. Hey, Tori. Same thing. Passed the phone to my left hand. Hello, Tori. Hey, Grandma, what's up? Holy shit. It's not the phone. It's me. The next morning, first thing, I went to urgent care. And they said, oh, it's most likely an ear infection. So they gave me antibiotics and sent me home. And 10 days later, when there was still that pressure and buzzing and I couldn't hear anything out of that right ear, I called a specialist and I went to see them. It's idiopathic sensorineural hearing loss. It's an inflammation of the auditory nerve, and we see this from time to time. The resulting hearing loss is typically permanent. There's no treatment for it. We don't know what causes it. Well, the doctor may not have known what caused it, but I sure as hell did. There was only one thing to do. I left that doctor's office and I went straight back to the forest. Parked my car up the trail, off the path, deeper and deeper into the trees. I walked and I walked until I stopped. And there was the oak tree. I stood amongst its roots. Only this time, I was pissed. I trusted you. I came to you with my broken heart, and this is your answer? I was feeling isolated, and now you isolate me even more. So much loss, and you take my hearing? What the heck? I was so angry, I began to cry. And through those tears, I looked at the trunk, and the furrows in the bark blurred into lines on a face, and the old woman came out of the tree and stood before me. She raised her hand. I knew again she wanted to tell me something, but there was no language between us. And as she made a move to reach for my head again, I slapped her hand away. No, you're not touching me. I've had enough of you. I trusted you, and you betrayed me. I thought magic and mystery were here to help us. Not this. And then I spat on the ground and I kicked the dirt in her direction, spun around and headed back to the car. I'm going to assume she melted back into the tree. And when I got home, life went on like normal for everybody else. But I was fundamentally different. Sure, I could still hear out of my left ear, but our ears work together in tandem to build a world of sound around us. And with the distorted buzzing in the right ear, it felt like my world had been amputated and was smaller. And I was so angry. And I sat with that anger until it unmasked itself and I saw that it was grief. And then I sat with that grief at all I had lost. And as I sat in that field of sorrow, I began to notice the seeds of acceptance beginning to sprout. And as I watched those sprouts grow and change, something changed inside of me too. One of my favorite things has always been to go out to dinner at a restaurant with a friend. But the buzzing and distortion in the right ear with the clatter and noise of a restaurant became physically painful. I'm an extrovert, and I didn't want to miss the time with my friends. So I started inviting them over to my house instead, or for walks in the park where it was quieter. Sometimes we played a game, or sometimes I cooked for them. Always we had meaningful conversation and buckets of belly laughs. You see, the buzzing in the ear made it such that I had to really focus on what they were saying. I couldn't think about my to-do list or what I needed at the grocery store. I couldn't even think about what I was going to say next. I had to genuinely focus on what they were saying. And then I learned a trick. Because all of that focus was exhausting, I learned to relax my energy and open my heart. And when I did that, I discovered that my heart could hear my friends. My heart could help me listen. And suddenly, I experienced old friends in a new way. And I felt connected. I decided to go for a walk in the woods. Not a mad tromp through a forest to an oak tree, but just a walk in the nature preserve not far from my house. And as I was walking, I thought, I wonder if I can practice that heart listening thing here. And so I relaxed my energy and I opened my heart. And I could hear the trees. They were swaying gently in a light breeze, and they were singing a poem. We are one, one through the mycelium. Two-legged, four-legged, all of us trees, all are one, all are free. And in their song, I felt rooted. Not long after that, the most remarkable thing happened. I was just puttering around the house. And again, I thought, well, practice the whole heart listening thing. And I softened my energy and I opened my heart and I began to listen with it. And I could hear my dog. Now, the remarkable thing was not that I had a conversation with my dog. It was that at that time, he had been dead for over 6 months. But I could hear him in my heart say, "Good human, good, good, wonderful." And with that, I knew I'd never be alone. So there was only one thing left to do. had to go back to the forest. I drove my car to the state forest. I parked. I started up the trail. I went off the path deeper and deeper into the trees. I walked and I walked until I stopped in front of that oak tree. I stood amongst its roots and I began to weep with gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I looked at the tree through those tears, the furrows in the bark blurred into lines on a face, and the old woman emerged from the tree and stood in front of me. And this time, I could hear her. There is great love for you here. Yes, grandmother. Thank you so, so much. We have another gift for you. And she lifted her arm like a tree limb and held out that branchy hand, and in it she had a stone. This stone is infused with magic. Touch it to your ear, and your physical hearing will be restored. I took the stone from her hands. Grandmother, if my physical hearing is restored and everything's easy again, will I still remember how to listen with my heart? Who can say? That's the mystery of magic. And with that, she melted back into the tree. I have the stone, but I haven't used it yet. It's just not worth the risk. Thank you.